Today, we are going to unpack some common but serious issues we often see in final year and master's level research projects, both in the written documents and during oral presentations. Number one, thematic analysis problems. Students often say themes emerged, but they don't explain how. Here's a common mistake. After analysis, three themes emerged: lack of motivation, poor facilities, and low funding. There is no mention of the coding process, no supporting codes, no coding software or method used. A quick fix for this particular issue: a student can use Brown and Clark's 6 steps: familiarization, coding, generating themes, reviewing the themes, defining or naming, and writing up. A student can use NVivo Atlas TI Max QDA or manual coding with evidence tables. You can also explain how you coded the data and how you identified the themes, not just that themes emerged. Issue number 2, citation problems. Students cite sources in text that are not listed in the references, or they include sources they never cited. The common mistake would be as follows: in text, Brown 2018, reference list, no Brown 2018. So a quick fix here is to use Zotero, Mendeley, or EndNote to automate citation. Run a side-by-side comparison between your in-text citations and reference list, so you can further regularly refresh your reference list when editing your document. Double check for uncited sources, especially when copying and pasting. Issue number 3, literature review and the discussion. So the issue here is that literature is dumped in chapter 2 and never used again in the discussion chapter. For example, in the literature review, a student would write, Tinto 1993 links student retention to institutional support. In the discussion, the student would write, many students drop out because they are unhappy. No mention of Tinto again. How to fix this? Revive your literature in the discussion. Example: this confirms Tinto's 1993 theory. A student cited lack of mentorship and academic guidance as key reasons for leaving university. So the solution here is bring back the authors you cited in the literature review when interpreting your findings. Ask, what does my finding say in relation to existing knowledge? Issue number 4, poor paragraph structure and transitions. In most research or thesis documents, paragraphs are poorly structured with no logical flow or transitions. How do you fix this? Use what we call the PEEL structure, PEEL structure, which stands for point, evidence, explanation, link. Issue number 5, inconsistent formatting and layout. A common mistake would be something like this. Heading 1, it uses Calibri 16-point bold. Heading 2, Times New Roman 14-point italic. The body, Arial size 11. And there is mixed line spacing and inconsistent margins. To fix this problem, use built-in styles in Microsoft Word. Stick to one font, e.g. Times New Roman 12-point for the body. Set margins to 1 inch or 2.54 centimeters all round. Use APA or your institutional style guide for heading hierarchy and referencing. And check alignment, margins, numbering, and spacing before submission. Issue number 6, statistics that are presented without interpretation. Students show tables or SPSS output but do not explain what it means. So you need to state what the numbers mean in plain language. So for example, the moderate positive correlation indicates that as time spent studying increased, so did students' GPA. The relationship was statistically significant. Don't just describe, explain what the results mean. State significance levels clearly. Explain the implications and not just the numbers. You could begin your explanation by saying, "This suggests that," then you continue to give the actual information. Issue number 7, theoretical framework not integrated in the discussion. In most cases, the theory that the students want to use in their project is introduced in chapter 1 or 2, but it is ignored later, just like how many students ignore the literature review in the discussion. So for the theory, many students write an excellent theoretical framework and then abandon it in the discussion. For example, theoretical framework, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In the discussion, the student only talks about grades, but not in relation to student motivation or needs. So how to fix this? Use the theory as a lens. So bring back the keywords from your framework when interpreting your findings. This is important for contextualizing your study according to existing frameworks. Refer to key theorists or models explicitly when discussing your results. Do not imply, but state it clearly. Ask, how does my data confirm, contradict, or extend the theory that I adopted? Issue number 8, weak or descriptive research questions. Most research questions that we see are descriptive. They are not analytical, especially at master's level. The common mistake many students make is in this form. What are the types of instructional materials that are used in schools? Now, this is a master's student who has set out to carry out research, and they ask a question like this. So after the types of instructional materials used in schools have been discovered, the question to ask now is, so what? Here is an improved example. How do instructional materials affect learners' engagement and academic performance in rural schools? You can use higher order verbs such as analyze, evaluate, compare, interpret, explore causes, and so on. This elevates or moves your research question from descriptive or declarative to analysis and evaluation. Remember that the words that you choose in your research questions and even in your title, they guide your action. Instead of what are students' views on academic writing, ask, how do students' views on academic writing affect their academic performance? So questions that relate to identifying causes or effects, those are low-level questions, especially at master's level. Issue number 9, poorly written abstracts. Abstracts that are 1+ page long include unnecessary background or definitions. Some abstracts read like full essays, over 1 page long, unfocused and full of background or explanations. For example, education has been important since the 18th century. ... In this study, which was done in Zambia, which is in Southern Africa, ... All that detail is absolutely unnecessary. So best practices here, especially for APA, it is recommended to use no more than 250 words. And abstracts should be concise, self-contained summaries of the key elements, such as the purpose, methods, findings, and key conclusion. Avoid citations, definitions, and unnecessary detail. Here is an example of an abstract. This study explored how digital tools affect academic writing among university students in Zambia. A mixed methods approach was used, involving 150 survey respondents and 10 in-depth interviews. Results show that while students use digital tools regularly, many lack critical skills for citation and editing. The study recommends integrating digital literacy into academic writing modules. Clear. It contains the background, the purpose, the methods, the findings, and the conclusion or implication. Lastly, Over-ambitious or illogical recommendations. In most cases, the recommendations are not linked to findings. They overreach their boundaries. Here is an example of an unrealistic recommendation. A student studies 30 people in one district and then recommends nationwide policy change. This recommendation is too ambitious and illogical. How do you fix this? Link recommendations to the actual findings in your study. Consider the scope and the limitations of your sample, and be modest and realistic when you're making recommendations. Recommendations need to be grounded in your findings and not your hopes. And they must align with the scope and the scale of your research. So it's important to base these recommendations on evidence and not assumptions. And be clear about the limitations of your study. So while this study focused on, you mentioned the specific sample, further research could explore, you mentioned the specific area. Key takeaways from what we are saying here is that every chapter should connect to the others. Use tools such as Zotero and Vivo MS Word styles to help you format your work. Be clear, concise, and evidence-based. Your research report is a demonstration of your ability to think critically and communicate effectively.